December. Now, since our move online into this odd world of internet interaction, our physical studio has reduced in size. And while we have had guests in to sing and play, tonight it's a bit of a tight squeeze, as old friend of Off the Record Mike Brookfield and his new outfit, Billionaire Surf Club, have wandered into Nova Towers in advance of their debut gig in the Wild Duck. That's going to be on the 1st of December, part of the series of gigs promoted by the Alternative Sunday Club. So without further ado, all I can say is, surf's up, dudes. The whole studio is kind of resonating at the moment. Good evening and welcome to the Billionaire Surf Club. Come over to the mic, Mike.
Thanks for having us back, Pat.
That was kind of a little bit of surrealness in the studio because we have one mic. Well, we've got 1.5 mics and we've mic'd up you on lead guitar. We've got a double bass. I've never had a double bass in studio before, and there's a lovely resonation off that in the background. And I'm getting it in my headphones because I've one mic over there, and we've got a snare drum. Introduce the guys and tell us all about yourselves.
Yeah, so I'm Mike Brookfield.
We know you.
We have Simon Farrell on the double bass, and I've known Simon for a long time, and Phil Casey, who's the hottest drummer in town at the moment.
Hello.
Nice one. And you just played. You had to do all the work here, you know. I'm just going to throw it
was. So we're a new band. We haven't even done our first gig yet. We're doing our first gig on the 1st of December in the Wild Duck in Temple Bar, and I've been obviously playing blues and doing blues albums and things like that over the years, and I really enjoy that. I just fancy doing something a little bit fun and a little bit different. And I've always loved the Gretsch sound, and I used to play Gretsches a lot in my earlier career. So it was good to kind of like go back to that era and just write a load of surf tunes and that.
For those of us who aren't, huge fans of the genre or know too much about it, besides the obvious, the Jan and Deans, the Beach Boys, blah, 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 you're using a Gretsch with a whammy bar. Now, the whammy bar is kind of essential to the whole sound, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah,
so
you need that.
Explain to us, for those of us not from our Orange County, what defines surf music?
What defines surf music?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the tune that we just played wasn't a surf tune, really, weirdly enough. We're talking about surf, aren't we? It was a tune called Drag Racer by the Des Wood Band. That was obviously the snooker theme tune in the 80s, wasn't it? But so with our set, what we have is... mostly originals, and then we pepper the set with kind of like fun tunes that people recognize, but they're not quite sure where they know them from. So, and the way we're trying to do it is a little bit different than your average kind of surf band, in that, you know, most surf bands will play, you know, Mizzaloo. We probably will play that because people will demand it, won't they?
Probably, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
but, you know, we're writing stuff, and we use kind of some electronics, and I have all these kind of vocal samples that I kind of trigger with a MIDI pedal. So we're kind of playing away, and you hear all these kind of like voices and all these unusual things going on in the background.
So you're actually going to be using samples in surf music.
Yeah.
We're going to have a whole new subgenre going on here.
Yeah, so I mean, the idea is to kind of do something a little bit different, make it kind of funky, make it as fun as possible.
You're trying a lot of emphasis on this word fun, because as you were saying, the last time when you were out with the last album, it wasn't completely your own work. You were singing someone else's lyrics, so there was a bit of this is a serious song, I'm going to sing it in a certain way. So was there a lack of I'm going to have a ball kind of thing? Yeah,
well, I kind of like miserable music as well, right? You know, I think most people do, don't they? Like, kind of music fans, they kind of like to wallow in kind of stuff like that. But I mean, like the last album, I co-wrote with Eamon Carr from the Horselips, and his lyrics were really, really great. But they were kind of serious as well, and a lot of them. And then even my album before that, Love Breaks the Fall, a lot of the subject matter was quite, typically blues, you know. So, and being a bit of a rockabilly pre those blues albums, it felt like a good time to go back and add some kind of fun repertoire to the set, because, you know, when you're doing a set list and you've just done two pretty serious blues albums,
you want to lighten it up.
You know, you go, hang on a minute, I need to kind of, you know, there needs to be a good time element. So hence I thought, well, I'll start a separate band, and we'll just do some kind of, I mean, the idea at the beginning was just to play rock and roll covers and have a bit of fun, you know. And then I kind of had a mad month where I wrote about 20 instrumentals. I just gave myself a bit of a mission. So I wonder if I can write a surf tune a day. You know what I mean? And I literally did. I just kind of demoed them up, you know, like 40 seconds a minute or something like that. And I did that for about 20 days, you know, in a month. And then I had this kind of catalogue. We went through them. We thought, well, that one's worth developing. That one's worth developing. And that's how the band was born, really, was out of that. At the beginning, it was supposed to be, you know, covers and that. But it just, I suppose that's my, you know, wanting it to be like the last albums as well. And continue the trend of being creative instead of just doing covers, you know.
Right, we'll play another one.
Yeah, well, let's do an original this time. This one's called Wave Shaped Moon. I kept coming up with these weird kind of concepts for tunes, and I thought, you know, if we do an album, would it be great to have like a comic book element to it where they tell stories? So this one, Wave Shaped Moon, could be like the moon turns into a huge tidal wave, and then the world to save the earth, we all have to communally surf the wave. Some bullshit story like that. Anyway,
I'm glad you used the word. Someone's just been on Facebook describing that as Dick Dale's lost love child with Hank Marvin.
I'm all right with that.
Yeah, that's okay.
Cool.
That's not a bad description, I think.
I just realised I never answered any of your questions.
No, you didn't. You didn't. You know, but I'm used to that. You know, I just sit here and get ignored all the time. You know, so we're not going back to the origins of surf music. Just let's say, was it late 50s, early 60s, Californian kind of vibe?
Yeah.
Come on into the mic again, Mike.
There was an album in the mid 90s, a compilation album called Rock Don't Run, and I bought that when I was kind of, I don't know what I was doing. I was touring around with musicals. I used to do a lot of rock and roll musicals and stuff like that. And I played it to death, and it had the Lost Straitjackets on it, and it had the Volcanos on it, and it had the Halibuts on it, and all these kind of kooky American surf bands. And that's kind of what really I kind of fell in love with. I've never, that shock horror, I've never really been that into the Shadows or anything, you know. It was never really my cup of tea, that kind of thing. I like Dick Dale, but, you know, every time when I heard Mizzaloo on, you know, obviously Pulp Fiction and stuff like that, when that came out, I thought that was amazing. And then when I bought his albums, it wasn't really, you know,
it was a different direction.
It wasn't my cup of tea. But what I kind of fell in love with was these kind of like garage bands from America, where, you know, they weren't professional, they weren't famous, but they kind of created arguably slightly more interesting versions of surf music, because I think it kind of blended a little bit of punk, a little bit of pop, very simplistic kind of guitar playing, but driven by riffs and melody, as opposed to like guitar, you know, more ego-driven kind of guitar, which you would find in genres which I've been working in, like the blues, which is kind of, you know.
There is when we arranged this, and I said I better do a little bit of research, because as I said to you, I know the obvious stuff, but there's a documentary called Sounds of the Surf. That's up on YouTube, and it kind of goes through the whole thing, the 50s into the 60s. It's interesting. There is another comment that's come in, as Conor Bergen said he defined surf music as dripping spring reverb.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. You know, you can see if you could. I'll post a picture up later of my rig, but like it's basically an amp with a delay pedal just cranked, you know, to get that kind of slapback echo sound. So it's kind of awash with ambience, you know.
What I love about it, I mean, okay, we're kind of stripped back here tonight. We've only got the snare drum, but the double bass. I'm getting this in the headphones here, and I'm loving it. You know. Yeah.
Simon is a legend on the Irish rockabilly scene. He's played in every band, every rockabilly band. I don't think there's ever been a rockabilly band Simon hasn't played in.
Anymore unless I'm in it.
Yeah. The funny thing is, okay, I mean, I've been around the Dublin scene a long time. I can remember Dublin's first reggae band, the first ska band, the first cowpunk band. But I think this is the first time I've come across a surf band.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm open to correction.
You know what? In a couple of years' time, we'll be here and we're going, so this surf explosion, this all happened, didn't it, on your show? There's all these surf bands. You can't move for surf bands. You know, it's the 2022.
It's obviously the next big thing. You know, we're in at the ground floor.
Well, we're not just a surf band. We're electro surf punk blues something.
Oh, shut up!
I missed one out, didn't I?
Shut up, and play music. Play music.
Should I play another one?
Yeah, why not? That's what we're here for, after all. No, go ahead.
Should we play King Strut? This is kind of a fun one. Okay. When I was kind of researching like surf tunes, I came across a few of those Henry Mancini kind of Pink Panther things, and because the guitar's amazing on those recordings, isn't it? And the era, like the Good, Bad, and the Ugly and things like that. So it was kind of based on this. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Strut, the Billionaire Surf Club, debuting their music here on Off the Record Online. The gig is coming up in the Wild Duck on the 1st of December. That's an afternoon gig with the alternative Sunday people. Without Barry Hartigan. Come in a bit again.
Yeah, 4 to 7 there. It's a really interesting project, as in, I've been a kind of guitar player and, working on my own projects and playing everything from cabaret gigs to jazz gigs or whatever pays the bills and feeds the kids kind of thing. It's actually been quite a tough gig, a tough challenge to actually play melodies, because there's almost like when you're playing blues gigs, you play a little riff here, you do a bit of singing, and then you burn a solo or something. But these, you have to concentrate so much. I don't know if I'm starting to feel the old beads of sweat pumping out on this one.
We're all pumping sweat in here at the moment.
Yeah.
I said this,
but it's cool.
I wish the studio was cool. It's not. It's anything but. In 20 or 30 years' time, never mind the surf upsurge that we're going to have. People reckon Dublin's going to be underwater because of global warming, and the only way to get around will be by surfboard or the best.
I feel a concept album coming on.
Oh, absolutely! Yeah, at least a triple. At least a triple. You're saying that about you having to concentrate so much, and I'm listening to the headphones. I'm getting all the little nuances of it, and I would have said, now, if anybody asked me about surf music, it's just they get on, bang, boom, 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 simple 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes of stuff, and it kind of powers along, and you could dance to it really well, and you can. But there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on.
Yeah, you can't. It's for me. It's more like playing jazz or something. You know what I mean? But even I would find a jazz gig easier than this, because as soon as you play one dodgy note when you're playing these melodies, they just stand out so much, because the riffs have to be kind of bold and obvious. The melodies have to kind of just be strong.
But there is a certain melodic quality to it where it's not rockabilly, it's not rock and roll. It has that certain surf quality to it, shall we say?
Part of the ambition with the band is, apart from using the electronics and trying to make it sound modern, is to kind of build a catalogue of material. We're maybe not necessarily releasing albums in a traditional sense, but having maybe a website or a place that people go to when they want to feel some surf music, and just build up this catalogue of surf music. It's so popular for TV and film as well,
The other important thing as well, in a live context, this is coming from somebody with 3 left feet, you can dance to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I was saying to you before, doing blues gigs,
There's a bass man in the corner smiling at the prospect of that. You wouldn't actually jive to it, would you? But it's... there's a distinct possibility of a male-female dancing thing going on.
Yeah, I mean, and again, like doing the blues gigs, I love doing the blues gigs, but, sometimes you just want to pull in a different kind of crowd. You want to be playing to younger people. You want to play to, both species.
I think the term is it's a different demographic.
Exactly, yeah. So,
Yeah. Listen, I'm going to give you a break because I did explain this to you. I had a request. And meanwhile, boards are all waxed. We're ready to go. As well as that, I expected a better display of florid shirts. I expected to see the whole Hawaiian gambit here tonight.
Just the drummer.
Just the drummer. Just the drummer.
Email.
Fair play.
I have a place for the drummer.
And the other, and the 3 of us are wearing black. Anyway, we're back on the surf. So this gig coming up, your debut gig with the band.
Yeah.
It's going on stage is nothing new to you. But is there always this kind of bit of trepidation when it's a new outfit, a new sound?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I know, and we did. These lads have been playing with the blues set as well, so it won't be our first gig together. I mean, me and Simon have been playing for maybe 15 plus years.
Ah, yeah, you're only newbies, yeah.
Phil, I've only met recently, but we share a lot of love for the same music and stuff, so it makes it very easy, But the pure volume of it's quite ambitious, kind of like doing. I think it's like 12 originals and 8 covers that we have on our set list. So that's quite an ambitious. And all the covers are tunes that I've never played before. So it's basically a whole brand new, fresh set. And there's very little improvisation in it. There is improvisation. I've given myself a few spaces to express and play blues and stuff. But it's mainly playing strong, bold riffs and melodies and stuff like that. So there's always that fear that you're going to have a brain freeze and you're going to leave it hanging. But I suppose you just have to kind of accept that, like anything.
But thinking back to I mean, this is the third time I think you've been in with us, third or fourth time, and I remember the first time you came in, you were telling me about your former career. She was, as you said earlier on, have guitar, we'll travel, we'll play, pay the bills, whatever. You've done West End stuff, you've done musicals, you've done, as you said, the cabaret gigs. So is there a level where you get to where, okay, this isn't your blues stuff, but is this really, and you're saying, okay, it's not simple music. I'm not denigrating the sound at all. And as I said, listen to what's going on here.
But in a sense, it is kind of simple music,
is there
it's hard to play.
Is there a release in it, though? Just to get out and whack it out kind of thing?
I think if it was too easy, I wouldn't bother. I think that the fact that there's a challenge, I've always wanted, since I mentioned that Rock Don't Run compilation that I got in the mid-90s, I've always wanted to have a band that played music like that, and it is simple music, but like anything, to do it well, it's like all music is kind of hard to do it to like a really high level, whether it's trad music or country music or whatever,
Well, here's the strange thing. I was reading one of the music magazines this month. They were talking to Booker T. Booker T and the MGs. Green Onions.
Yeah, amazing.
Everybody knows Green Onions.
Yeah.
And they were saying to him, how many times over the years, and he said, it sounds like it's a really simple thing to do, but the two hands are doing completely different things, and he still finds it a challenge whenever he sits down to play it. And I thought, wow, we'd never think of that, because you hear, you're so familiar with the way it just pounds along and strolls along. Yeah. And for the guy producing it, and I suppose, if you've been playing the same thing for so many years, it has to challenge you, or else it's just going to be, here we go again.
Yeah, and I do like a challenge. I'm sure the lads at some point have said, oh, why don't you just make this much easier on yourself and just do kind of like 18 covers and 2 originals or something, But I'm kind of like, hey, lads, I've got another idea for a tune. And they're kind of like, oh, God, like another one to learn, But I suppose that's the challenge. You're constantly, I suppose you reach a level with one genre and you want it to be the same. It's a bit like, fighting at a different weight, isn't it? You still want to win.
Yeah. We always want to strive and try and win. You said earlier on, okay, we've had your surf music. Let's go back to your first album. You're going to do a piece from that first. Yeah,
we're going to play Peace for Joe, actually. Yeah, and that was a kind of a special tune, I think, on that. on that album.
Yeah, it was. It was.
I remember you played it, which I'm grateful for you.
Oh, quite all right. And it's funny, it came up in conversation with a friend of mine today.
Oh, okay.
So there you go. He'd gone back to that album. I told you about he'd been on holidays in Spain, and he's playing some music on a USB stick, and Suitcase Blues happened to be on it.
Yeah.
And he got talking to some guys from Oldham who wanted to know who was playing that. And long story short, a copy of the album went to Oldham.
Yeah.
And because of the interest generated in your Brookfield album, he went back to the first album.
Right, that's great.
Totally enjoyed it. So there you go. Stephen is he knows what he's doing on this as yet last. On Peace for Joe. We were running through it earlier.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Simon.
Yeah. Oh, Simon. Sorry. I have another Stephen in my head for something else. I just have to remember. 1, 2, 3, and go.
Yeah, let's play a bit of Peace for Joe.
Isn't that nice? Peace for Joe. That was on your first album.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice to go back.
It is, yeah.
Nice to go back. Now, whilst I was trying whilst you were playing, I was trying to find a comment that when Conor Bergen was talking about, surf music and, the reverb thing, he put up a post and asked me to ask you, and we've probably gone through with your rig, what do you use on stage to get that whole reverb thing going on?
The main thing is the guitar, that like the Gretsch, and like you mentioned before, the Bigsby. I'm just tuning up here because if I launch into the next song out of tune, I will be a little bit. Anyway, so done. So the guitar is the main thing, the Gretsch, and actually handling a Gretsch is not as easy as it might seem. Like I remember getting my first Gretsch. Actually, my first experience playing a Gretsch on stage, I was in London, and I was doing a show, and the show started with "That's All Right, Mama," and I was lent before. I was using a cheap kind of big jazz guitar to do the Scotty Moore thing, And another fella in the cast, he actually had a Gretsch, and he said, you can use mine. It's a 1950 something or other, and it's a beautiful thing. It's worth a fortune. You should use it on the show. And I played it at the sound check. Sounded great on the show. That's all right, Mama. Went into it, pulled all the strings off the bridge on the West End stage. That was my first experience of playing a Gretsch on stage. You know, literally the first note, I just ruined the guitar, and I had to put all the strings back on, try and continue playing. It was pretty horrendous. So that's just an example of kind of like what happens with the Gretsch. There's always something springing across the stage, poinging off your guitar, or but there's a beauty in them, when you get to kind of handle them and not pull the strings off the Gretsch and keep them in tune. There's a beauty in them that you're not going to get out of a Stratocaster or Les Paul. Not saying they're better, they're just different. And for this surf thing and for the rockabilly thing, they do really well. The one I'm using here is actually a George Harrison signature model, like a copy of his thing. But they make them in like Korea now, and you can actually get a Gretsch quite cheaply, and they sound amazing, And then it's basically the sound of a small amp cranked, and then a very short echo that goes ga ga ga.
Yeah,
that's the way that you set. If you're a guitar player and you're wondering how you set the echo, ga ga ga. That's how you said it.
We were talking about the Palladium earlier, just like that.
Yeah, sorry.
Fair enough. Yeah. Okay, so let's do the business bit again. You're in the Wild Duck. Take it away.
Yeah, in the Wild Duck on the 1st of December, and it's our debut gig. And if you want to come down and hear some fresh music, it's surf music, and it'll be edgy, and it'll be fun, and come on down. It's at 4:00, so it's an afternoon gig. So yeah, it should be good fun. We will be sweating and working very hard for your entertainment.
Well, we're sweating here at the moment, so you've got practice at the sweating part. We've all passed the sweating kind of thing. The gigs. There's been a great series of gigs there at the moment. In the
That's
Wild
right.
Duck.
Yeah.
Those Sunday afternoon gigs are really, really. I think Barry Hartigan has done a great job.
Fair play to
down
Barry
there.
Hartigan. Yeah,
and it's the breadth of music that's gone on down there. It's been terrific.
Yeah, and for us, it's almost like the perfect gig, because there's a crossover of punk and edginess, which we feel like we kind of slot right into, and it's there's a strong thing about original music. You've got the Troubled Pilgrims, and and you've got I think there's like a Clash tribute band on there as well. And there's a lot of really interesting stuff. So it's a place that you can play rock and roll and not feel like you're disturbing somebody having the gin and tonic or the soup or something.
Which is always a good thing. You should always disturb the neighbours when you're playing rock and roll. Yeah. You're going to play another one?
Yeah, let's do it. I think it would be only fair if we played a tune by the Volcanos off that influential compilation album from the 90s.
We've been talking about it a few times.
Yeah,
so go over.
It'd be good fun to play that.
But actually, time's coming up, so we'll get this one in and we'll see how we go. But go.
Okay,
go.
Nice one. Here we go.
Just like that. We used that phrase already. That was, give me the beef on that one again.
That was Bikini Sunset by the Volcanos.
Right. I'm just making notes of this because I usually post my playlist on a Tuesday night and it'll go out of my head. Yeah. Right. You were talking about maybe setting up something, a store of this music where people can go to. What are you going to do about that?
Yeah, I mean, we
an
will,
online kind of thingy.
We plan to record early next year, but obviously we, to gig the tunes, get a few, play the tunes live a few times and tweak them. But the idea is to kind of record maybe February or something like that, and then start building a catalogue online. We might do a short run of physical copies or something like that. But you know what it's like these days. It's not easy to kind of make your money back on them. But I mean, build up a catalogue, because a lot of people love this music, but they wouldn't kind of like go out and buy a surf album. It's just all over TV and radio when it comes to commercially,
Yeah,
and obviously people think about the Tarantino thing, but and I think it's popular because it has strong themes and it gives strong images and it's it's kind of a bold, simple sound, isn't it?
Yeah. But simple, but as you say, there's a lot more going on than people think.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I actually, just before I was teaching a guy, I do a lot of teaching. I have this student in Texas, and he's a brilliant blues guitar player. And we do like a Skype call every month, you know what I mean, just to kind of talk over stuff. And there was one point he says, I'd love to learn some old Ventures tunes or something like that. And he found them so difficult. Now, he can play Stevie Ray Vaughan, he can play Jimi Hendrix, he can play Clapton, but like learning a few of the simple surf tunes, he just found it so hard. And it was kind of almost like, well, phew, it's not just me who finds this genre kind of tricky, because it's all about the melody as opposed to like just expressive playing.
But it's like when you come to rock and roll and rockabilly, you hear what those guys did in 2 minutes, two and a half minutes, and it's just outrageous.
Yeah.
And everything's, it's just rock and roll.
I'm really surprised someone like Brian Setzer has never done a surf album. Has he ever done a surf album?
I don't think so.
Yeah, that's kind of really surprising, because he's obviously like king of the Gretsches, isn't he, in the modern world,
Yeah.
And like even going back to like Eddie Cochran, those 2-minute absolute smash tunes, amazing tracks.
But when you hear that kind of like that 2-minute stuff, and the influence is still being felt.
Yeah,
it's outrageous music, and absolutely, you kind of think, you can dance to it, yeah, fine, but listen to what's going on.
I was watching an interview with Katie Tunstall actually, and she was going on about Eddie Cochran, about what a great influence he is and how strong all that stuff is, and that kind of was quite, you wouldn't expect that.
Yeah, that's kind of like you kind of think that generation has gone beyond it, but there you go.
But I think
good music is good music is good music, and I mean, look at it when you think about it. Robert Johnson caused what in the blues? Nothing. But take forward a few years when people started to listen back, and the influence he had on to use the term rock music, blues rock, whatever. It's an incredible thing. Incredible thing. There's all the little threads, really, isn't there, when you think about it?
Yeah, he's even got a Netflix documentary now. So he's super hip, isn't he?
Yeah, I'm telling you,
Maybe they'll do a Netflix documentary on the Billionaire Surf Club.
Well, in 20 years' time, when Dublin is underwater and we're surfing to work, we know who to blame. Listen, guys, thank you so much for coming in. Have you got something that'll last about 3 minutes?
Yeah, let's do another one, Bikini, in the title, will we? This one's called Bikini Robots. Again,
okay.
If I had a comic book, no, we won't go.
No, we did that. You forgot the cape.
This is my strange fantasy about bikini robots.
Yeah, you forgot the cape and you can't fly. It's over, Mike. It's over. when the triple concept album comes out, it's going to be the Billionaire Surf Club versus the Bikini Robots in a battle to save Earth. We can have the comics afterwards. That's going to be great. Thank you so much for coming in. And I think I've lost about a half stone in sweat, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing. You're in the Wild Duck on December 1st, around 4 o'clock, 4:30 kind of kick-off.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Bring your dancing shoes.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Pat. I really appreciate it. And like I say, every time I come on the show, I go back with a renewed energy for rock and roll because I hear so much great music on this show. I do. I always go back and pull out the Small Faces albums and Humble Pie and things like that. So thanks a lot for having us.
It's always a pleasure. It's made to share, made to go around and share, and to dance to as well. When you can. I was thinking at home, what could I do to follow up when you guys were on? I was going to be cheeky and play the Beach Boys. I said, no. After that, the Beach Boys sound kind of tame.
That's right.
When you think about it, I was going to play surfing, you were saying, no, it's too tame. Did you know that Brian Wilson was the only Beach Boy who didn't surf?
Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, there you go.
That's right, yeah.
There you go. So the song I came up with was this one from The Clash, because Charlie don't surf.